This episode of Marijuana Today Daily is brought to you by next week's inaugural Cannabis Media Summit, taking place on Friday, December 7th in Times Square, New York City. The Cannabis Media Summit is drawing in a host of super smart people from the worlds of cannabis media, journalism, and public relations to dive into all the most important topics of the day, including discussions around ethics in media, how to use communications to tell your marketing message, and the rise of podcasting and social media. In a quick bit of disclosure, I will be at the summit leading a panel on marijuana news and podcasting, along with Bruce Barcott from Leafly, Seth Adler from the Cannabis Economy podcast, and Marijuana Today's very own Taylor West. This is an event you do not want to miss. Open up cannabismediasummit.com to learn more and to register. If you're in the Big Apple next week, you should very much be in fear of missing out because this one will be a quality event. One more time, that's cannabismediasummit.com. Good morning, Marijuana Nation. It's Wednesday, November 28th, 2018, and you're tuned in to episode 617 of Marijuana Today Daily. I'm your host, Shay Gunther, and I'll be walking you through today's marijuana news and headlines. As always, we have a full and busy day of cannabis news in our hands, so let's jump right into it. We started off today in Michigan, where news broke yesterday that medical marijuana shops that have, as of yet, been unable to secure state license will be free to keep their doors open through at least December 31st. This storyline is a long-running one that's featured a bouncing deadline for those shops to get state license that started out in June, then bounced to September, then December, then back to October before being killed by a court decision in recent weeks. Yesterday, state officials cleared the way for unlicensed shops, or provisioning centers as they're officially known in Michigan, to remain open through at least the end of the year. The other big development that came out of the state yesterday was the adoption of permanent rules that will allow provisioning centers to offer delivery services to their patients. Probably a good idea to point out that one of our sponsors, the Ohm of Medicine, is a licensed medical marijuana provisioning center located in Ann Arbor, Michigan. Open up Detroit Free Press for more on this one. Michigan is a big state with a huge pool of patients and is worthy of your attention even if you don't hang your hat there. There are some new numbers out of Massachusetts that show that the initial week for legal adult use sales was robust, with more than $2 million flowing through the doors in the state's first two open shops. In all, $2.2 million in sales were made between the Cultivate dispensary in Leicester and the New England Treatment Access shop in Northampton between November 20th and the 25th. Because both shops were closed down for Thanksgiving, that means they did that amount of sales in just 5 days of business. There are more dispensaries in the state slated to open up in the coming weeks, but at least for now, Massachusetts' two adult use shops should continue to see gangbuster numbers. Speaking of gangbuster numbers, we have an update out of Maryland where the state's medical marijuana industry is reportedly having a pretty stellar year. According to projections, medical marijuana sales in Maryland, which just began last December, will crest the $100 million mark, more than double the amount of money the state initially projected. So far, according to numbers provided by the Maryland Medical Cannabis Commission, Maryland dispensaries have sold just under $69 million in products through September, with that total including $1.8 million from last December, the market's opening month. There are more than 70,000 registered medical cannabis patients in Maryland and around 70 dispensaries. This is another good story to open up for the full read. Those are our top stories for today. It's time for Marijuana Today Daily Headlines Blitz. Before we blitz out on headlines, let's quickly thank our sponsor, the inaugural Cannabis Media Summit, which takes place next Friday, December 7th in Times Square, New York City. Besides the people that I mentioned at the top of the show, there will also be a lot of representatives from the mainstream media, as well as some crossover folks like the Boston Globe's Dan Adams, who is one of the founding members of that newspaper's new cannabis-focused divisions. Marijuana Today regular on hiatus and current Massachusetts Cannabis Control Commission member Shalene Title will be at the Cannabis Media Summit talking about her experience using social media to communicate to the world, and Dope Magazine and High Times will be there diving into the particulars of their recent acquisition deal. Even if you're not in marijuana media yourself, this is a valuable conference to go to because everyone could benefit from having a better understanding of the news and media landscape. I know I'm totally biased on that, but I think it's true. Open up cannabismediasummit.com today to learn more about this must-attend event and to register. That's cannabismediasummit.com, which takes place next Friday, December 7th in Times Square, New York City. All right, time for the Blitz. Marijuana Business Daily's Matt Lamers jumped into a story out of Canada where a company seems to be kind of falling apart at the seams following news that it was being stripped of a marijuana production license after being charged with a number of violations. Just a couple of months after being initially suspended by Health Canada and less than a week after final word of the loss of license was given, the CEO, COO, and president of Ascent Industries all announced that they were stepping down from their positions. Ascent has until December 17th to appeal the decision with Health Canada and says it intends to do just that. This one has a lot of details and moving parts, so I'd open up Matt's story for more on this one if it grabs you. It's high season for companies reporting financial results for the year, and we have a small train of stories with headlines along that theme. Starting off is GTI Industries, also known as Green Thumb Industries, which just reported that its revenues were up 344% year over year for the first 9 months of 2018, landing at $17.2 million. GTI now has open stores in 5 states with 3 more in the works. Open up Deb Borchard's story over at Green Market Report for all the other numbers and details on this one. Charlotte's Web Holdings, Inc., which sells CBD products branded around the Charlotte's Web strain of cannabis, is next on our reporting train as it saw its revenues for the first 9 months of 2018 grow 75% to $48 million. With $37.1 million of that landing as gross profit. Alan Brockstein over New Cannabis Ventures has more on this one. And rounding out reporting time, we have iAnthus Capital Holdings, a multi-state operator active in 5 of its 6 targeted markets, releasing its third quarterly financial results. For Q3 2018, iAnthus saw consolidated revenues rise 101% over the previous quarter to just over $1 million, while its systems-wide revenues crested $5.1 million. Most strikingly, the booked assets as of September for the company jumped to $137.3 million, up from just over $45 million last December. That follows a year in which iAnthus was actively expansive and acquisitive. Leafly is reporting that Nevada lawmaker and noted industry supporter Tick Segerblom has stated that he plans to push for the legalization of marijuana consumption lounges as soon as the state legislature is back in session in January. Segerblom traveled to San Francisco last week with a number of other Nevada lawmakers to tour the quasi-legal cannabis lounges that have sprung up in that city. This one's a great longer-form story and worth the full dive in. As always, we have all the news we cover linked to on our website at mjtodaydaily.com and on our Twitter account at mjtodaydaily. Jumping up to Idaho for a headline, we have an interesting story about the intersection of politics, prohibition, and money. The Idaho Statesman is reporting that a company owned by a noted prohibitionist lawmaker is profiting by servicing an Oregon legal marijuana business. Republican Assistant Majority Leader Representative Brent Crane and his brother, State Treasurer Ron Crane, own their namesake business Crane Alarm Services, which according to the Statesman's story counts as one of its clients' Hot Box Farms, a dispensary located in Oregon. Representative Crane is a noted prohibitionist, and when asked about his profiting from legal cannabis, said that the part of his company that works with Hotbox is not under his direct control, but rather another one of his brothers. Convenient bit of mental gymnastics there. And finally for today, the BBC News has an insightful story about the African country of Lesotho, which is one of the more progressive nations on the continent when it comes to marijuana policy. Lawmakers in Lesotho legalized medical marijuana last year, licensing large corporations to begin industrial cultivation. But as the BBC News has it, there are also a lot of small-scale farmers who have been relying on selling cannabis for decades who now face additional challenges of merging into the newly forming legal system. A story well worth the full read. Those are the headlines and news for the day. I'll be back with you again tomorrow morning with another information-packed episode of Marijuana Today Daily. But in the meantime, if you have any stories to share or feedback to give, zip us an email to headlines@mjtodaydaily.com. And while you're clicking around the interwebs, swing over to our Twitter account at mjtodaydaily and visit our website at mjtodaydaily.com to find links to all the news we cover. Thanks to our sponsor, the Cannabis Media Summit, and to all of our awesome Patreon listeners for the support that makes this show possible. To join the lesser ranks of the Patreon listeners yourself, swing over to our website at mjtodaydaily.com and click on that big blue button at the top of the page that says Become a Patron. I'm your host, Shay Gunther. Thanks for tuning in, starting your day with marijuana today.
One take, Shay. One take.